So what happens if you buy a home over the median? Well, today is closing day. I'm actually going to be signing on a property that I'm going to be selling. And this is a home that I broke one of my rules on. I went over the median, and I want to share with you what my results were and some of the things that I could have done different to improve. Hey everybody, so I'm sitting here with Jason, and what we're doing right now is we're actually closing on a property that I've had for many years. Most of you know that my favorite strategy is a short-term buy and hold, where this is actually a single family property. This one's a little bit more, do I just sign right here?
Yeah, right there.
All right. Jason and I, so Jason represents the title company. When he and I get together, how long does signing normally take?
When you're the seller, it takes about 15 minutes.
And when it's with me?
When it's with you, about 3 minutes.
All right. That's because I've just been doing this for such a long time. So we cruise and crank, but I'm going to hang on to Jason just for an extra second here. So I want to tell you just a little bit about this property. So this property, I ended up purchasing this home. This was one of my longer holds. I probably had this property for close to 10 years. And I'm normally 3, 5, 7 years when I hold on to a property. But this one we ended up purchasing. And this kind of breaks one of my rules, Jason, that I talk about in some of my videos here, because when I buy my single family homes, I normally purchase them below the median. This one I actually paid $275. And it kind of illustrates, you know, if you're buying something above the median, there's greater risk. I have been cash flowing. My low cash flow a month has been $211. My high cash flow has been $339. It's actually kind of a small cash flow for that size of a property being that far over the median. And on this one, you know, we're selling it today for, is that $348,000?
$348,000.
So $348,000, bought it for $275,000. So there's roughly $68,000 there that I'm getting as far as having, and owning a property for 9, 10 years and only getting $68,000. I mean, the ROI will still come out way ahead of 401ks and IRAs, but this would have been a way higher ROI had I actually bought the property closer below the median. So this was still closer to the beginning of my investing lessons, and I wanted to shoot this video for you to really illustrate some of the mistakes that you can make. If you purchase a property over the median, your ROI goes down, your cash flow may look bigger, but it's actually proportionally smaller, and that's what creates the greater risk. This property looks like it has had, over the term of holding it, probably $20,000 of cash flow of additional profit above and beyond after expenses. So, you know, on this one, we're sitting at $88,000, almost $90,000. So it's been a good project. Really glad to get this one off the books though, because this is one of my riskier properties. And so it's made me my cash flow. It's got good profits on it. But frankly, if I had to do it all over again, I generally don't buy single family homes over the median unless you really know what you're doing and you're really competent. So Jason, dude, thanks for coming on down today.
Absolutely.
Help me get this wrapped up.
Every time, we'll be here.
Appreciate you.
Okay.
So I want to break it down for you, what just happened in that property that I was selling. And I made this comment that it was riskier to buy something over the median. Obviously it worked out, but I talked about my percentage of profits being less. Let's talk about what that risk is, because some of you live in markets where you're over the median, and I'm not going to recommend that you invest in your backyard where you've got really expensive real estate especially, which is why I'll give you access to better markets. Most of us around the country do live in markets that do work just fine for backyard investing, things like my lease option system. So in this example, if I buy a property for $275,000 and the median is actually $225,000, then this means that I am $50,000 over the median. What does that really mean at the end of the day? It means that there are less people that can actually rent a home this size. There's less people that can buy. And when you're in real estate playing at or below the median, you're marketing to the largest group of people that can actually afford to be in your home, which means that there's just a higher demand and it's easier to find someone. For example, go to the opposite. Let's say that we're not talking about $275,000, which is $50,000 above the median. Let's say we're talking about $1 million home. $1 million home, it's going to be really hard to find someone to put in that home. Why? Because think of how many people live in your area that could actually rent a home like that. And so that just exemplifies this. So there's risks in two ways. So number one is you have less renters. Number two that I talked about is that you have less cash flow. Now, what do I mean by less cash flow? This is what I specifically mean. When you get up, I have found the math that as you approach $300,000 to $330,000, something happens. You end up approaching the break even. The break even on cash flow. And what that means is that what people are willing to pay in rent for a property compared to, hey, if I buy this with a 20% down payment, if my payment now is $1,600 a month, I might not be able to collect more than $1,600 a month rent for that house. Again, take it to the extreme, $1 million house. If you just put 20% down on $1 million house, your mortgage might be $8,000 a month, but you might only be able to find a renter at $5,000 a month, which means you're losing $3,000 a month. Here you're breaking even. Here at $275, that's why on this house, I was making a few $100s a month, a couple $100s a month. I call that risky because I've got a big mortgage, and some of us are like, well, $300,000 a month is a lot. $300,000 a month is a lot on an $80,000 property. It's not very much on a $275,000 property. Does that make sense? So if I were to draw you just a little bit of a graph, and this is the value of money. So this is a $100,000 home, and this is a $1 million home. Value does this, but rent does that. And let me break it down. It means that anything, if this mark right here is the $300,000 line, then that means that this is a really juicy place where you're going to get your highest percentage of cash flow compared to the value of the property. And on this side, this is negative. This is that $1 million home that you have an $8,000 mortgage on that you're actually just renting for $5,000 and you're losing $3,000 a month. Not a good situation to be in. So in that video where I sold this house and I said, whoa, made $68,000, but I'm kind of relieved to dump it off my plate. It's because it was one of my earlier properties and I allowed myself to violate one of my investing rules. Even though it worked out and even though my ROI was really solid, I would have been safer if I had focused on buying a property for $200,000. Why? It would have had more renters that would be interested into it. And it would also have what? It would also have more cash flow. And ultimately, when you're doing a short-term hold and holding a property for years, cash flow becomes important because if something breaks down, then in those months, the cash flow is going to go to pay for those things. So I wanted to kind of share that with you so that you got a little bit more of the math and the science behind why I feel so strongly about buying properties at or below the median for the average investor that is kicking off their career. Learn from my mistakes. I'm telling you right now, this whole channel is dedicated towards helping you have as much real estate success as you possibly can. Bottom line is everyone needs real estate in their portfolio. And if you want some assistance in building yours, click the link up here and ask me and my team what we can do to actually help you succeed in building a powerful financial freedom real estate portfolio.